my spouse doesn't understand me? What's the deal? Well, I hope I can answer that question for you. But first, I'm Jim Porto, and I'm part of the Marriage Helper team. And I want to ask you to like and subscribe to our YouTube page and follow us on multimedia so you can be up to date on everything we have to offer for you and your relationships. So why doesn't my spouse understand me? I've had that curious thought, I don't even know how many times in the 34 years that I've been married. And I'm sure Shannon's had her share as well. In fact, if you've been married for any amount of time, in fact, dating, you know that it's difficult. In communication, one of the things I hear is people say, well, we don't know how to communicate. And I say, well, I know what you're saying, but you actually do know how to communicate. You're just doing it poorly, right? And so when we look at the fact that my spouse isn't understanding me, I want to encourage you to take or adopt a philosophy, a characteristic that we are taught as professional speakers to use. And the first thing is this, that the responsibility of understanding falls on the speaker. See, so many times when we're sharing in pain or difficulty or things like that, what we expect is the other person to go the nth degree to understand us. And I get that, but here's one problem. They don't know what we're thinking. You follow me? They don't read minds. They guess, but they don't read minds. And so there's no way they can really understand what you're thinking. I can't understand what you're thinking. I'm going to judge your emotions. I'm going to judge what I see outside of you. And so when you say something to me, I'm going to go by my experience and maybe think, well, this is what it might be. Well, as a speaker, I know I need to speak in a way so you can understand me, and the responsibility is for me to find the words or examples for you to see clearly. When I'm talking to my wife, you're talking to your spouse, it's important that we take the same mindset. See, it would be a dereliction of expectation for you to be able to say, well, I'm going to say whatever I want, and then you get the truth out of it. It's not an easy thing to do. Now, one of the reasons that doesn't work is because we speak in either unclear or emotional words, or we use one-word phrases. We'll say like, I want more respect, or it'll say like, you treat me badly, or something like that, right? But the problem or the challenge with that is the word doesn't give a description of behavior. See, what we're doing is we're judging behavior to feel disrespected or feel like you don't love and like me. And so when I say that to them, they're going to use their interpretation of what respect means. So if I'm going to get my spouse to understand me the best possible way, I need to be able to present my emotions, not necessarily in emotional terms, but in this is what I feel, not just feelings, but these are the facts behind it. I feel this way because I hear this or I see this. So when you do X behavior, I feel this way. And you want to be careful that it doesn't become you make me feel this way, because no one can really make us feel any particular way unless we allow them to. So we have to approach this whole situation with a thought that says, I need to speak clearly so they can understand me. What are some challenges to that? Well, we don't know how we feel is one challenge. I mean, we don't know how to describe it. I can't tell you the hundreds of sessions I've had with people, and I will say, well, what does that mean to you? How does she or he demonstrate disrespect? And they'll say, well, and well, I don't know. Okay. So sometimes people don't even know how to describe how they feel themselves, right? The other thing is what we call blindness, and that is that we just can't see clearly, or the other person can't clear. So if we're speaking in just emotional or single word things, they may not be able to understand it or follow. So we're going to say how we feel, but behind that we're going to say something like, and it's a result of when I see these behaviors or I see this is how I feel. And again, we're not placing blame, we're explaining that's how we interpret it. Well, what would that do for them? Well, it lets them see an example of a behavior that influences or instigates or triggers that emotion. So if they have a desire to stop triggering the emotion, what happens? We can then change that behavior. You follow me? So it's a big deal to make this description descriptive, right? And saying doesn't accomplish it, even if the other person says they do, because they're probably going by their circumstance, their understanding. So if I want my spouse to understand me, I need to speak in ways that they can. I need to show them, give them examples, not too many, but give the examples they need to understand. The second thing, or second reason that people don't understand folks, and especially when it comes to our spouse, is that we're either too emotional or we're not emotional. We tend to judge things based on who we are. If your spouse is not an emotional person, they're more reserved, laid back, and when you bring things to them, you talk to them, you're all over the place, sometimes that emotion could shut that other person down because they're reserved for thinking and contemplating and stuff like that. So what you want to be able to do is, if it's something they need to understand, you're trying to communicate, you want to communicate it, like we said earlier, in a way they can understand it. Not just words, but also in actions. I mean, you've been around people before where their actions, even before you saw their words, kind of excluded them from being in your influence. They were doing a certain thing, acting a certain way. No matter what they said to come to you, you were probably going to reject it. I mean, the place could be on fire, and that person comes up and said they're on fire. You're like, I'm going to check with someone else. Why? I don't trust this person based on their behavior. Well, if my spouse is super non-emotional and I'm, oh, we need to pay the bills or whatever, and I'm losing it, too emotional can cause a person to shut down. If my spouse is emotional and I'm very stoic in what I present to them, when I'm trying to communicate how I feel about something, and I do it matter-of-factly using beautiful words, but I don't talk about the emotion it evokes, that emotional spouse will miss the point. So I need to be in the middle. I need to be in a place where they will understand it. It still goes with number one, but it's important because if you're too emotional or not emotional enough, the communication can suffer. And here's what we know for sure. Emotions always trump intellect. And so the best thing we can do when it comes to communication is get ourselves as close to homeostasis, as close to a normality, a reservedness as we can, so that we can understand and we can get things accomplished. The third thing that happens, I think, that keeps our spouse from understanding us is this: we're not listening to them. That's right. See, a lot of times our spouse doesn't understand us because they've either brought something to us or they've given a compelling argument or they've shared something back, and we didn't listen to understand, we listened to respond. And as a result, we don't hear or understand the little innuendos or the core of what they're saying. And as a result, we start fighting over the event instead of addressing the core, instead of looking at what needs to be adjusted or used so that we can have a better relationship. If you want your spouse to understand you better, listen to them to understand what they're saying. Because communication only happens if both persons are listening and speaking, not when both persons are speaking and not listening. So be careful about that. Now, the fourth thing I want to talk to you about on this is how do I get my spouse to understand me better, would be that I need to be clear, okay? And what I mean by clear is I need to make sure that I'm not speaking too much, but also make sure that I'm speaking enough. What happens is sometimes for people like me and my wife get in a conflict, I'm going to over-explain. And there gets to a point where the person gets your point. They get what you're trying to say, but we keep going and we push past. In the sales industry, they say you pushed past the close, you pushed past the sale. In other words, you could have made some good stuff here, but you kept talking, you wouldn't shut up, or you brought in the kitchen sink in the argument, or you started talking about too many things and staying focused on one. Or you just said, I want to be happy. Or you just started talking in ambiguity. See, we need to be in a place that we can speak to them where we speak enough, but not too much, where we maintain attention and not. Now, listen, it doesn't mean you have to become a professional speaker to do this. If you put these things in your mind, you will already set yourself up for more of a positive interaction, a place where your spouse can understand. The final thing you want to do is ask. Do you understand what I'm explaining? Can you explain this back to me? And watch. If they get it wrong, get a hold of yourself. One of the worst things people do is the spouse will get it wrong. Oh, you don't understand me. We don't. Well, how's that going to help in the communication? Now we've elevated it. We've made people victims. We've made people assaulters. That didn't help at all. What? I can take responsibility for who I am, and I can make sure that I'm speaking properly. I'm going to speak to an area where I'm not just giving emotional terms, but I'm being clear. I'm not going to be too emotional in my attitude or my actions, nor am I going to be too stoic. I'm going to be in a place where I'm easily understood. I'm going to make sure that I'm listening to what they're saying and what they're asking of me so I can give a good answer, not to just respond, but to understand so I give the right response. And I'm going to make sure that I speak either enough are not too much. The point is to be understood, not to lecture the person into a coma. I know you can do this, and I'm confident that if you practice these things, it's going to help you have more, or less rather, anxiety in your marriage, which can translate to more happiness. Thanks for listening to this video. And as we said, right now you're going to have an opportunity to subscribe to something absolutely free. And we want to invite you to take advantage of that. Not only that, please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be up to date on the newest information and videos that we present to you. And if there's any way we can serve you whatsoever, give us a call at our office or visit us on the web, www.marriagehelper.com, and we would love to serve you any way that we can. Take care. I hope to see you again soon.